The council chamber glittered with banners of empires, each one a symbol of power and pride. Aliens from 100 worlds sat in their seats, their voices sharp, their eyes cold. They had gathered to watch Admiral Xiron, the reptilian warlord who had crushed dozens of rebellions. Today, he promised, he would finish a legend. At the center of the hall, the great screens flickered on. The image of orbit above a dead world filled the chamber. Human wreckage drifted silently, torn ships burned black, fragments of steel and shattered satellites turning slowly in the void. Admiral Xiron stood tall, his scales gleaming under the lights. His long jaw curled into a grin as he raised his clawed hand toward the screen. "Behold," he roared, his deep voice echoing across the chamber, "the legacy of Earth. Broken hulls. Silent machines. Ashen ghosts. This is all that remains of the humans you once feared." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The insectoid delegates clattered their mandibles. The avian representatives spread their wings in mocking applause. Even the speaker smiled thinly, pleased to see humanity's memory trampled. Xiron stepped closer to the camera, his eyes gleaming with cruelty. Humans were loud once. They spoke of freedom, of unity, of strength. But when true power arrived, they broke. They scattered. They vanished. He leaned forward, his grin sharp. "And now, I hold orbit above their grave. Let every world see the truth, Earth is nothing. Humanity is finished." The council chamber erupted in cheers. Yet, not all voices joined. In the lower balconies, a young alien officer shifted uneasily. His eyes stayed on the drifting wreckage, frowning. Something in the silence of that orbit felt wrong. "Admiral," he called out hesitantly, "if they are gone, why do the signals persist?" The hall turned toward him. Whispers spread. Xiron's grin faltered for a moment, then returned. He growled low. "Static. Nothing more than broken machines muttering into the void." But the officer did not look convinced. Above the dead world, the alien fleet floated proudly. Dozens of warships shimmered under the sun, their hulls covered in markings of victory. They circled slowly, watching the wreckage like predators circling a carcass. And yet, their sensors twitched. Strange readings pulsed in the dark. Small distortions, like echoes. Faint transmissions in patterns that did not belong to static. A voice crackled through one of the alien ships. "Unknown signal detected." The Admiral snarled. "Ignore it." Another report followed. "Sir, another anomaly, a shadow just crossed Sector 6, but there's no object to match." The Admiral's claws clenched. "Debris. Ghosts. Do not let phantoms frighten you." But unease crept through the fleet. Back in the council chamber, the broadcasts continued. The Admiral spoke louder, drowning doubt with arrogance. "Let the galaxy watch as I scatter what remains. Let no one speak of Earth again." He gestured dramatically toward the wreckage, his voice dripping with mockery. "Even their ghosts hide in silence." The screens flickered. The wreckage shifted, just slightly. Pieces of steel moved, shadows crossing the void. At first, it looked like random drift, but then the movement aligned, too precise to be chance. The young officer leaned forward, whispering, "That is not debris." Delegates murmured, confused. On the flagship, alarms flared. "Sir." "Readings increasing, there's power signatures inside the wreckage." The Admiral roared. "Impossible." But the truth grew clearer. Wreckage that had drifted for years now glowed faintly. Broken hulls revealed hidden engines. Fragments aligned into formation. And then, silence. Total silence. The void held its breath. In the chamber, the delegates grew uneasy. The mocking laughter faltered. The speaker frowned, tapping his staff nervously. "Admiral, what is happening?" Xiron's scales glistened with sweat. His jaw tightened. "Nothing. Tricks. Nothing more." But even he felt it now. Something in orbit was watching back. Then, the signal came. A single pulse across every frequency. Not static. Not broken code. Clear. Sharp. Human. Every screen flickered. Every comm lit up. Every world listening to the broadcast heard the same voice. A woman's voice. Calm. Cold. Unbroken. Orbit is never empty. The council chamber fell silent. The delegates froze. The young officer's eyes widened. The admiral snarled, his claws trembling. No. It cannot be. But the screens showed it now. From behind the wreckage, from the shadows of debris, a shape emerged. Black hole, engines glowing faint red. Smooth, silent, deadly. A human warship. And it was not alone. The council chamber was restless. The laughter that once filled the air had faded into uneasy silence. The image on the great screens showed it clearly. Among the drifting wreckage of human ships, something moved. Admiral Zyron clenched his claws around the railing. His voice growled low, sharp. Debris. Nothing more. Do not be fooled. But even as he spoke, reports flooded in from his fleet in orbit. Sector 3, an object vanished from scanners. Sector 5, short bursts of energy detected. Sector 9, shadows crossing the void with no matching mass. The officers aboard his ships looked at one another nervously. The void around them no longer felt empty. The young alien officer in the chamber stood again. His voice trembled, but it carried. Admiral, with respect, this is no random drift. Something is out there. The delegates murmured in alarm. The avian leader flared her wings. If the humans are gone, why do shadows follow your fleet? The admiral bared his teeth, his scales shimmering under the lights. Because you are frightened fools. Humanity is ash. I will prove it. But the void disagreed. One of his escort ships, a sleek destroyer, reported a sudden contact. Unknown object detected, closing fast. Before the admiral could respond, the transmission cut into static. The screens flickered, showing only brief flashes, a dark blur, a crimson glow, then silence. The destroyer was gone. The chamber erupted in chaos. What happened? Where is the ship? Admiral, answer. Zyron's claws dug deep into the railing. His eyes burned with fury, but beneath the rage was fear. They hide in shadows, he hissed. Cowards. But shadows cannot fight fleets. In orbit, his warships spread out, weapons primed. Sensor beams swept the wreckage. Drones buzzed into the debris fields, searching for intruders. But the void played tricks. Every time they scanned one sector, movement appeared in another. Small objects flickered in and out of range. Shapes drifted, then vanished. Whispers spread among the crews. Did you see that? Something moved past our hull. It's them, it has to be them. Another scream tore through the comms. Ship down. Portside cruiser destroyed. The chamber screens flashed again. The delegates gasped. A cruiser, once gleaming, now burned as its hull split apart. No enemy was visible, only wreckage drifting silently as fire consumed the ship. The speaker's golden staff trembled in his hand. His voice cracked. Admiral, you said humanity was gone. Explain this. Zyron snarled, his voice rising to a roar. It is sabotage. Nothing more. But the young officer shook his head. His eyes were wide. No. This is a hunt. Something stalks your fleet. And then, the voice came again. Through every channel, every comm, every speaker, calm and sharp as a blade. A human voice. You thought orbit was yours. You thought silence meant death. You never learned, silence is where we wait. The chamber froze. Delegates leaned forward, their eyes wide with fear. The insectoid delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. It is impossible. Humans cannot be here. They are gone. Ilara Voss's voice, unmistakably human, answered with cold finality. Then why do your ships fall? Another escort exploded. The screen showed fire tearing through its engines, the debris scattering into the void. No warning. No visible attacker. The alien crews screamed over comms. We cannot track them. They move too fast. The Admiral slammed his claws, his fury boiling. Find them. Destroy them. But fear had already taken root. In the chamber, whispers spread among the delegates. Ghost fleets. Phantoms in orbit. Humans in the dark. The avian delegates' feathers flared in panic. You mocked them, Admiral. And now the shadows answer. Back in orbit, Xiron's flagship trembled as alarms blared. His second officer shouted over the chaos. Unidentified signals closing from all directions. They are surrounding us. The Admiral froze. His eyes darted across the tactical display. Blips filled the screen, forming patterns around his fleet. It was no longer random shadows. It was formation. The chamber fell into silence as the image became clear. Orbit was no longer theirs. From the wreckage, from the shadows, from the silence of the void, human warships were rising. Engines glowed faint red, weapons armed, hulls black as night. They had been waiting all along. Ilara's voice came again, echoing across the stars. You mocked us. You called us ash. But ash is where fire begins. The council, once filled with laughter, sat trembling in silence. Admiral Xiron gripped the railing, his claws shaking. His mockery was gone. Only fear remained. And above, in the shadows of orbit, the hunt had just begun. The council chamber was in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, wings flaring, mandibles clattering, claws scraping against stone. The great screens showed fire and wreckage as more alien ships vanished from orbit. Admiral Xiron's scales glistened under the light. His jaw was tight, his claws wrapped around the railing like iron. He had mocked humanity, and now shadows stalked his fleet. Desperate to regain control, he gave the order. Bring me the prisoner. The chamber doors opened. 2 guards dragged in a man in torn black uniform, his face bruised but his eyes calm. He was tall, lean, and carried himself with quiet pride despite the chains on his wrists. The speaker leaned forward. A human? Still alive? The Admiral sneered. Yes. A relic we captured in the outer colonies. The last of his kind. The reptilian general stepped closer, his teeth bared. Then make him speak. Let him confess before the galaxy. The prisoner lifted his head. His voice was low but steady. You want confession? You'll have none. The chamber erupted in mocking laughter. The avian delegate spread her wings wide. Still proud, even in chains. You humans never learn. The insectoid delegate hissed. Your fleets are gone. Your world is dust. What hope remains for you? The prisoner's lips curved into a faint smile. Hope is not given. Hope is carried. And you cannot take it. Admiral Xiron roared, slamming his claws on the table. Enough of your riddles. Tell the galaxy the truth, humanity is extinct. The prisoner's gaze lifted, calm and sharp. If we were extinct, Admiral, you would not fear one man in chains. The chamber grew quiet. Even the laughter faltered. Outside, alarms blared. Another alien warship vanished in fire. The reports came in, frantic. Enemy signatures closing. Shadows surrounding us. We cannot track them. The speaker turned to Xiron, his voice shaking. Admiral, your fleet is falling apart. Explain this. But the Admiral's rage could not hide his fear. He turned back to the prisoner, his voice a growl. What are they? Ghosts? Remnants? Where do they come from? The prisoner only smiled wider. Orbit is never empty. The chamber froze. Delegates stared. The reptilian general roared in fury. What does that mean? Speak clearly. The prisoner's voice lowered, cold and certain. It means what you see is not the end. It is the beginning. On the screens, flashes of crimson light lit the void. Human ships slipped from the wreckage like predators emerging from the dark. Black holes, silent engines, weapons primed. The prisoner's eyes gleamed as he turned toward the camera broadcasting across the galaxy. For those watching, for those who thought us gone, remember this. He straightened, even in chains. His voice carried through every comm, every world, every screen. Humanity does not bow. Humanity prepares. The speaker shouted, "Cut the feed." Guards scrambled to silence the broadcast, but it was too late. The words had already spread. Billions had heard them. Billions repeated them. Across insectoid hives, workers whispered. Across reptilian barracks, soldiers shifted uneasily. Across avian spires, children mouthed the phrase. Humanity prepares. The Admiral leaned closer, his eyes burning. Tell me where your fleets hide. Tell me now. The prisoner's chains rattled as he took one final step forward. His eyes never wavered. His last words were quiet, but they cut sharper than any blade. Look up. And then the alarms screamed. The great screens flickered again, showing the sky above the council world. Dozens of black silhouettes slid from hyperspace. Engines glowed faint red, their holes vast and silent. They moved into perfect formation above the planet. Not ghosts. Not debris. A fleet. A human fleet. The prisoner closed his eyes. A faint smile crossed his bruised face. They've arrived. The council chamber fell into silence. Every eye was locked on the great screens. The void above the council world was no longer empty. Black silhouettes slid out of hyperspace, one after another, their engines glowing faint red. They moved in perfect formation, slow and steady, like predators claiming territory. The delegates trembled. The insectoid leader clicked his mandibles nervously. Impossible, it cannot be. The avian delegate's feathers shook. They were extinct. They were ash. But the truth was undeniable. The humans had returned. On the council world below, cities erupted in panic. Billions looked to the sky, watching as the stars disappeared behind black holes. Parents pulled their children inside. Soldiers pointed their weapons upward, though all knew they were useless. The skies belonged to Earth now. Admiral Zyron's claws dug deep into the railing. His voice boomed, though it trembled beneath the fury. Form defensive lines. Fire on them before they can strike. In orbit, alien warships moved into position. Hundreds of gleaming vessels, their hulls lined with weapons, formed tight ranks. Beams of light flared as they powered their cannons. The alien fleets had crushed rebellions before. They had defeated dozens of species. They expected another easy victory. But the humans moved differently. The first volley erupted, railgun slugs tearing through the void, plasma lances glowing red, missiles streaking silently. Alien cruisers split apart instantly. Destroyers exploded in fireballs. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds. The human warships moved like a single organism, each strike precise, each maneuver flawless. Where alien fleets fought with noise and chaos, the humans fought with silence and order. The council chamber erupted in cries. Impossible. They fire with perfect aim. Whole fleets gone in seconds. The speaker gripped his golden staff with shaking hands. Admiral, your forces are collapsing. But Admiral Zyron only roared louder. Hold the line. Overwhelm them with numbers. His words carried no strength. Even through the screens, it was clear, the humans did not fight for survival. They fought as hunters. In the lower balconies, the young alien officer's eyes widened as he watched. They are not scattered remnants, he whispered. This is a fleet, a real fleet. Delegates around him stared, pale with fear. Above, the human fleet pressed forward. Drones swarmed from carriers, moving like storms of black sparks. They darted into enemy ranks, piercing shields, tearing fighters apart. Titans unleashed barrages that ripped through entire formations. Alien admirals screamed orders, but no command could match the humans' precision. Within minutes, half the alien line was gone. On the ground, alien civilians stared at the sky as it burned. Some screamed, some fell to their knees. Whispers spread faster than fire. The humans live. Their fleets blot out the stars. We cannot stop them. In the chamber, the insectoid delegate collapsed into his seat, mandibles clattering in despair. They are not ghosts. They are not ash. They are fire. The avian delegate's voice cracked. If this is only their first fleet, what comes next? No one had an answer. Then, the human transmission cut through every channel. The same calm voice that had haunted them before. You called us extinct. You mocked our silence. But silence is where we prepare. You thought the void was yours. But orbit is ours. The council chamber shook with the weight of the words. Delegates shivered, their pride gone. On the flagship, Admiral Zyron roared, his voice desperate. Focus all fire on their lead ships. Break their formation. His crew hesitated. Their claws trembled over their consoles. One officer whispered, Admiral, their formation does not break. Another volley tore through the void. Alien ships burned, their wreckage scattering into silence. The human fleet closed the trap. The battle was not a war. It was an execution. In the chamber, the prisoner, still chained, still bruised, lifted his head and smiled faintly. His voice was quiet, but it carried. I told you. Look up. Above the council world, the first human fleet hung in orbit, undefeated, unstoppable. And the galaxy understood, humanity had returned. The council chamber was no longer filled with laughter. Once, the delegates mocked humanity's ashes. Now, they sat in silence, their eyes wide as the great screens showed orbit burning. Alien warships fell apart like paper, their wreckage scattering into the void. The human fleet moved with terrifying precision, every volley exact, every strike flawless. Admiral Zyron's claws dug into the railing. His scales glistened with sweat. His pride was cracking. This cannot be, he muttered, though all had seen the truth. The broadcasts spread faster than light. Every world, every colony, every soldier in the galaxy watched. On reptilian fortresses, soldiers froze in their barracks. Some whispered in disbelief. They fight like predators. They are too precise, too disciplined. They were supposed to be gone. In insectoid hives, workers stopped in the tunnels. The hum of labor faded into silence as screens showed alien ships burning. Mandibles clicked nervously. Phantoms in the dark. No. Not phantoms. Humans. In avian towers, families gathered in plazas, staring upward at the public holos. Children asked the same question over and over. Why do they fight so calmly? Why do they not fear? No parent could answer. The council chamber erupted with desperate voices. Cut the broadcast, one delegate cried. They must not see this, shouted another. Every second it spreads, we lose control. The speaker slammed his golden staff, trying to calm the storm. But his voice cracked as he shouted, Order! We must not panic. Yet even he knew the truth, panic was already spreading across the stars. On the council world itself, civilians flooded the streets. They stared at the sky, where black silhouettes moved above the clouds. Some screamed. Some prayed. Some whispered words they had only just learned. Earth prepares. In orbit, the human fleet pressed on. Their silence was more terrifying than roars. They did not taunt, they did not jeer. They simply executed, every strike another reminder that they had waited in the shadows for this moment. Alien admirals screamed into comms, their voices desperate. Form up. Hold the line. They are too fast. Shields failing. The comms cut into static as ships vanished. In the chamber, the insectoid delegate trembled. They should not exist. We erased them from our records. We destroyed their worlds. How do they stand here now? The avian delegate's voice shook. Because while we laughed, they waited. While we mocked, they prepared. The reptilian general slammed his claws, but even his roar sounded hollow. Then they will burn us all. The prisoner, still chained at the center, lifted his head. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the silence. No. Humanity does not seek to burn. Humanity seeks to remind. The delegates turned to him, eyes wide with fear. He continued, his voice steady. You thought us gone. You thought silence was death. But silence is where we built. You feared nothing, and so you laughed. But now you will fear everything. You will fear the sky. You will fear the silence. Because we are there. Across the galaxy, soldiers, workers, and children repeated his words. You will fear the sky. You will fear the silence. The whispers spread faster than orders. Fear had already won. Back in orbit, the last line of alien defense collapsed. Human ships cut through cruisers, leaving wreckage glowing red against the void. Survivors fled in every direction, their transmissions filled with terror. They do not fight like us. They are too disciplined. They are everywhere. One broadcast carried across half the galaxy before it cut. The humans live. The Armada lives. In the chamber, the speaker collapsed into his seat. His golden staff slipped from his claws, clattering against the floor. His voice was broken. They were supposed to be extinct. The prisoner's eyes burned with quiet fire. Extinction is your word. Survival is ours. Above, the human fleet slowed. They did not press further. They did not fire on the world below. They simply held orbit, black silhouettes blotting out the stars. And the galaxy understood, this was not conquest. This was a warning. The skies above the Council world were already dark. The first human fleet hung in orbit, its black holes blotting out the stars. Alien warships had fallen, their wreckage still burning in the void. Silence pressed down on the planet below, heavier than any bombardment. Yet the silence was only the beginning. On the council floor, the delegates argued in panic. They cannot have more than this, one shouted, mandibles clattering. This is only a handful of ships, a trick, another insisted, though his feathers trembled. The reptilian general slammed his claws. We will rally our reserves. They cannot face the full strength of the galaxy. The prisoner raised his head. His chains rattled softly, but his voice was calm. You still do not understand. What you see above is not the end of us. It is only the beginning. Alarms screamed in orbit. On Admiral Zyron's flagship, officers shouted over one another. Multiple hyperspace breaches. New contacts forming across all sectors. Sir, there are too many. The Admiral's eyes widened. His claws froze over the console. On the screens, the void itself seemed to split apart. One by one, black silhouettes slid from hyperspace. Dozens. Then hundreds. Then more. Engines glowed faint red, casting the skies in a crimson haze. Hulls aligned into flawless formations. Carriers opened, releasing swarms of drones that shimmered like storms of ash. Titans emerged, their cannons bristling like mountains of steel. And still they came. The council chamber fell silent. Delegates stared at the screens in horror as the armada grew. The avian delegate whispered, her voice trembling. They blot out the suns. The insectoid delegate's mandibles clicked uncontrollably. No species could hide such numbers. No species could build this unseen. The young alien officer leaned forward, his face pale. His voice was quiet, but steady. They did. And we laughed while they built it. On alien colonies across the galaxy, civilians looked to their skies and trembled. On reptilian fortresses, soldiers dropped their weapons as reports poured in. On insectoid hives, the chants of Earth prepares grew louder. On avian towers, children pointed at the sky in fear. The legend of the humans was no longer whispers. It was truth. Back in orbit, alien admirals screamed into comms. Fall back. Break formation. Retreat. But it was too late. Human ships moved with terrifying discipline. They did not chase. They did not taunt. They simply formed a wall of steel, surrounding the Council world in silence. It was not an attack. It was a cage. Admiral Zyron's scales shimmered with sweat. His voice cracked for the first time. This is impossible. No empire has ever fielded such numbers. Not even the Council fleets. The prisoner's faint smile returned. His voice was steady, merciless. You called us weak. You called us scattered. But while you ruled, we forged steel. While you mocked, we sharpened blades. While you declared us gone, we built an armada. His chains rattled as he stood taller. And now, it awakens. The chamber shook with the sound of thousands of engines rumbling across the void. The armada's glow turned night into blood-red day. Oceans reflected the crimson haze. Cities dimmed beneath the shadow of endless warships. The speaker dropped his golden staff. His voice was barely a whisper. No power can stand against this. The avian delegate clutched her feathers tight. Then the galaxy is lost. The prisoner's voice cut through their despair. No. Not lost. Reminded. You thought extinction meant silence. But silence was preparation. Humanity lives. Humanity prepares. Humanity returns. In orbit, the armada shifted, its formations flawless. Thousands of cannons turned as one, their red glow illuminating the world below. Billions screamed. Armies braced. But the fire never came. The glow dimmed. The weapons held steady. The message was clear. We could. We choose not to. The galaxy trembled. What had begun as laughter in the council chamber had become silence in every corner of the stars. The humans were no longer a myth. The humans were no longer ghosts. The humans were an armada. And they were endless. The council chamber had never known fear. Here, empires had mocked rivals. Here, fleets had been ordered to conquer worlds. Here, humanity had once been declared extinct. But now, the proud chamber was silent. The great screens showed the sky above the council world. Thousands of human warships hovered in perfect formation, their engines glowing faint red. The armada blotted out the stars. Their weapons glowed crimson, aimed at the planet, but they did not fire. It was not an invasion. It was something worse. It was a reminder. Delegates shook in their seats. The insectoid leader's mandibles clattered uncontrollably. This cannot be real. No species can hide such power. No species can field such fleets. The avian delegate's feathers quivered as she whispered, yet they did. And we laughed while they built it. The reptilian general slammed his claws on the table, but his roar cracked with fear. Then they will burn us all. They will end every empire. The young alien officer stood once more, his voice trembling but steady. No. They don't need to. Look at them. They already have us broken. The speaker gripped his golden staff with shaking claws. His voice wavered as he tried to rise. This chamber speaks for the galaxy. We demand answers from these humans. What do they want? The prisoner raised his head, chains still bound around his wrists, though he stood taller than all of them. His voice was calm, merciless. They want nothing. Humanity does not beg for tribute. Humanity does not demand surrender. Humanity demands only this, memory. You erased us from your records. You called us ash. But ash is where fire begins. The chamber froze at his words. Even the speaker lowered his head. Then the screens shifted. A new figure appeared, standing aboard the lead human dreadnought. Her uniform was black, her eyes sharp, her voice cold as steel. Commander Alara Voss. The galaxy had heard her whispers before. Now they saw her free, standing before the Armada. Her voice carried across every channel, every world. You mocked us. You thought silence meant death. You thought your laughter erased us. But humanity was never gone. We waited. We built. We prepared. Her gaze burned as she leaned closer to the camera. And now, we remind you. The chamber shook with murmurs. Delegates turned pale, wings drooping, mandibles clattering, claws trembling. The reptilian general snarled weakly, "If you mean to conquer us, then strike. If you mean to destroy us, then fire." Alara's voice sharpened, cutting through the fear. No. Conquest is simple. Death is simple. But fear endures. We do not need to burn your worlds. You will burn yourselves with every sunrise, wondering if today is the day we return. On alien colonies, civilians fell silent, listening to every word. Soldiers shifted uneasily in their barracks. Children repeated her lines in whispers. Fear endures. Humanity prepares. Back in orbit, the Armada shifted. Thousands of cannons glowed crimson. The skies turned red, oceans below reflecting the glow like rivers of blood. Billions screamed. Armies braced for annihilation. And then, the glow faded. The cannons held steady. The Armada did not fire. The speaker collapsed into his chair, his golden staff clattering to the floor. His voice was broken. Why do they wait? Why do they not finish us? The prisoner answered, his voice steady and final. Because dead worlds are forgotten. But living worlds remember. You will remember humanity every time you see the stars. The council chamber was shattered. No one laughed. No one mocked Earth. They sat in silence, trembling, while the Armada hung above like a shadow that would never leave. And across the galaxy, billions whispered the truth. The humans live. The Armada is endless. The galaxy will never forget.